So the big tax question is this: how do wealthy people keep their money working for them when selling their business, real estate, or other highly appreciated assets without paying hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars in tax? What if we, as business and real estate owners who have poured blood, sweat, and tears to growing our wealth, and who didn't hire expensive tax attorneys and CPAs to map out an exit strategy, knew their secrets? Instead of recreating the wheel, why can't we just model the way they deferred 30 to 50% in tax, paid off debt, funded their next business dream, and most importantly, leave a financial legacy to give to the causes we believe in most? What if their secrets weren't complicated at all, and you just need a guide who is a few steps ahead of you? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Brett Swarts, and welcome to Capital Gains Tax Solutions. Welcome to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is the best way to grow your wealth. I'm your host, Brett Swarts. In each episode, I'm joined by some of the best financial independents and passive income wealth advisors, or those who are entrepreneurs and help other people grow their wealth. Together, we're going to share some ideas, deal stories, and inspiration so we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. Today's guest is a wealth of knowledge. In fact, many companies, they struggle with having employer recognition programs where they really can help their employees thrive and get the recognition they deserve. Our next guest is the founder of myemployees.com and also a real estate investor himself, and brings a wealth of information to share with us. I want you to welcome David Long. David, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. Thank you, Brett. Appreciate it.
So, David, will you tell our listeners a little bit about your story and your current focus right now?
Okay. Well, my name is David Long. As you said, I am the founder and CEO of a company called My Employees, which you mentioned, at myemployees.com. We are in the top 1% of employee engagement and recognition companies in America. We also are in Canada as well. And we have approximately 10,000 active clients across the country. Companies like Walmart, FedEx Ground, Outback Steakhouse, Charterhouse Restaurants, Capitol Grills, a bunch of different things. A bunch of I guess you'd say, retail chains, restaurant chains, retirement communities, like I said. And that is basically what the thrust of our business is. And I started it 30 years ago in my mom and dad's garage.
And tell me about it. What was the inspiration behind it? What said, you know what? I want to focus on this particular niche, because I imagine 30 years ago, there probably wasn't a lot of people doing what you were doing.
Yeah, I tell people I started my business out of desperation, not inspiration. And a lot of people, I guess, could probably say that. But I lost my job, and I went through 7 jobs in 3.5 years. Not trying to set a world record or anything. It just worked out that way. And I ended up starting my own company, which was the smart thing to do. And I knew how to engrave and things like that when I was in high school and college, and kind of worked my way through school doing that. So I had that information in the back of my mind. And when I lost my job, you go back to what you know. And I had the opportunity to start the company, like I said, in mom and dad's garage, where I had nothing else to lose. So I actually went out and to a real estate company, went in and signed them up, delivered the product, and then I started snowballing one after another. So I focused on the 3 R's: restaurants, retail, and real estate. And those were the things that are foundational to my business. And as you said, I also invest in property. Single family homes mostly. I have some commercial property, have some farmland, have some more commercial property I haven't developed yet. So the various things. I'm all into capital gains. So I think it's smart, it's strategic. Any business owner that keeps all of their business in the business, all of the money, the gains, as far as the income that they produce and the profits, is not very intelligent. You need to diversify today. So it's smart to be able to do that.
Absolutely. That's a great way to make sure you're preserving your wealth and also creating it along the way. So David, before your success of this amazing company that serves some of the biggest companies in the world, who was David growing up? I think we're all given a gift or different gifts, or even maybe a superpower, you could say. I believe God gives each of us unique gifts that we can help more people. But I want to know, who was David when he was growing up? What was that superpower maybe when you were young? And how has that helped shape how you help others today?
That's a good question. My father was a Baptist pastor for 55 years, and he passed away about 6 years ago. And when I was younger, being the oldest of 5 sons, and I looked up to my dad, obviously, and that is what I thought I was going to go into. And then after 3 years of Bible college, I kind of dreaded it, going home and talking to my dad. I said, "Dad, I need to talk to you." And he said, "What is it, son?" I said, "Dad, I don't really think I'm meant to be a preacher." He said, "Well, do you have a burning desire to preach the gospel?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, don't be a preacher." And I was expecting this long dissertation about how it destroyed my life. But he was like, I said, "That's it? That's all you're going to say? I built this thing 6 months up in my mind, and this is all you got?" And he goes, "Yes, son." He said, "I want you to be happy. I don't want you to do what I want you to do." And that told me a lot about my dad. And I just said, "Well, I appreciate that, Dad," but I didn't know what I wanted to do after that. So, I went into retail and various things. I worked at AT&T. They used to say back in the day, and I'm older than you are, but they used to say AT&T, the right choice. And I used to say ... except for David Long. I hated that place. I couldn't stand it. Oh, corporate world, you can have it. But yeah, that's basically it. And I really, I was in a bit of a tailspin there for a couple of years after not knowing I wasn't going into ministry. I didn't know what I was meant to do, because that's what I'd planned to do since I was 9 years old. So does that answer your question?
That does answer my question. So following your father's footsteps, thinking you might be a Baptist pastor, going to Bible college, having it all planned out, knowing that, hey, I don't think this is for me. Going to your dad expecting a different answer, he pleasantly said, "Hey, son, I want you to be happy. Follow where where you think God's leading you, and if it's not being a pastor, that's okay." I can relate. I went to Bible college too, and I actually have a double degree and a minor. And one of the degrees is business and theology. When I tell people that, they say, "Oh, you going to be a pastor?" Or I'm like, well, I wasn't planning on it, but I'm in business, and I'm a Christian, and I love studying it. But there's always this assumption because you went to, let's say, Bible college, or you studied something in the ministry, that it automatically means that your ministry must be just this segment of being a church pastor or church leader. But in reality, you look at the disciples, and they were fishermen, they were contractors, they were tax collectors, there were people doing the trades and in the world. And that is, this is, I guess, another topic for a different podcast, but essentially that is the ministry. It's not just the one segment of what maybe the traditional folks would think.
Yeah. And honestly, it's the very fact that I have been, my father was a pastor, and I have a heart for pastors because of that. And I always hear people always talk about, preacher only works on Sunday, which is kind of a joke, because they work harder than most people out there. I mean, they're going all the time. My dad was especially. But I would say basically what I learned from my father was keep going, don't give up. And whatever you're doing, do it with all your heart. And I really believe in that. And I convey that with my people. In my book, Built to Lead, which I've mentioned, was Wall Street Journal bestseller back in 2015. And in there, I talk about book club, which is one of the number one things. I've been on about 250 podcasts, and that's the number one thing people want to talk about is book club. I pay all of our approximately 55 employees now every Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock. Actually, we just moved it to 9:30, which is okay. But we meet every Wednesday at 9:30, and we talk together for an hour. And I'm paying everybody to be in there. They're not doing their job, quote unquote. But we buy books, for example, Brett, like Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I remember years ago when we only had 36 employees and we read that book. After we'd completed the book, I had better than 10% of my employees come to me and say, "Dave, that book saved my marriage." And I'm happy to say that today, 3 of the 4 of them are still going strong. And that was probably 8 years ago, maybe.
So building into your employees, not only getting something that tracks others, helps others track performance and give recognition, but the importance of building into the leadership and the development and spending that time where you say, hey, I'm going to pay them for an hour.
All your people.
With all your people, right? Your family, your employees, your team members, everybody, and making that an intentional time. So you guys did the Dale Carnegie. It's a great book, by the way, How to Win Friends and Influence People, one of the most well-known books.
Classic.
And then, when you can use that to inspire them, and then it saves marriages, that's incredible. So I imagine that's very, very part of the rewarding part of what you do. What else is rewarding as far as what you do? Maybe shifting to the actual in people you serve, right? The customers you serve. What's the most rewarding part about what you guys do?
Well, we help them have better relationships with their people. First and foremost, they need to acknowledge the contribution their employees are giving toward them and their success. Zig Ziglar's quote, "To get what you want in life, you must first help other people get what they want," is an extremely valid and truthful statement, because ultimately by helping people get what they want, you get what you want, but you get so much more, and not just what you want, but the rewards of helping people have a phenomenal life. I get this probably, I don't go more than a couple weeks without any of my people telling me, and I just got one from, in the last week, I got one from Mike, who's our Walmart rep. He deals with all the Walmarts, sells, them, signs them up. And Beth, another one of our salespeople. Both of them have told me in the last week, that I changed their lives. And I'm quick to tell my people, no, I didn't. I put you on the playing field. You played. You were the one who changed your life. I just gave you the opportunity. So I want them to take credit for the things that they do. I've put other people on the playing field. They haven't played as well. They didn't win, but these guys did. And they thank me because, like, for example, Mike was a Walmart manager for 7 or 8 years, and he loved the company, but he had a 7-year-old son. And as we got to be friends, I just met him at the gym. And we started talking and everything. And he said, I'm working 60 hours a week, working my butt off. He said, I hardly see my son. He said, I don't want to lose that time. He said, he asked me, could he come to work with us? I tried to talk him out of it, Brett. But we went down to the old Ben Franklin clause, where you draw a line down the middle of the page, pros and cons. Pros for my employees, pros for Walmart. And ultimately, he said the defining decision was, I want to be able to have a life and spend it with my son.
Yeah, versus trading, time for dollars, and you got to realize that your kids are only here for a short time where you're actually their parent full time, and they're off on their own.
Oh, that's for sure.
Those are priceless moments. I can certainly relate with 5 kids, all under the age of 9 and under, and these are precious moments, right?
Congratulations.
We have 5 kids.
I've got 3 children.
3?
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I got 4 girls and a boy. Now you go.
Kids.
You go.
Yeah. I've got 3 children and 5 grandchildren. So
congratulations. Like I said, I've heard the best part are having the grandchildren, right? All the play and fun and less of the work, right?
And give them back. Yeah, that's right.
yes. So shifting a little bit now, we're going to maybe shift to some of your real estate investing and perhaps maybe get a little bit tactical on some taxes here, because you don't grow wealth, I think, just by being an entrepreneur and a business owner. You've got to figure out ways to be creative and use the legal loopholes that are available to offset income. So talk about how you've kind of forged those two, the business venture and all the success with owning real estate as a way to maximize your tax your tax situation.
Yeah, let me say first and foremost, there are so many people out there that when it comes to a CPA, they look at that as an expense. Let me be clear, and I'm not anything to do with a CPA. But a great CPA will pay for themselves many times over. And if you try to do things cheaply by getting cheap advice, you get cheap results. And you get results that ultimately cost you a ton of money. So as it pertains to real estate, I have, as well as my business, I have a very professional team. I have the CPAs. I have my CFO. I have my brother, who's actually my family office manager of the company we use, Randy Long. And that's, and these guys get together along with my COO, and we get together twice a year and we figure out what it is we need to do in the next 6 months to get us ready for tax time. What the most prolific, best move that we can possibly do, and to be able to protect the wealth, not only of myself, but of our different entities, the properties, as well as my employees. My literal employees.
So the CPA, CFO, brother who's in the family office manager, CEO, twice a year, you're doing planning and prep and looking at the best ways to incentivize your tax situation, but also for your employees to make sure that they can get everything they want, right? Which everyone wants to save in taxes, right?
Correct. So it's smart to plan. It's better to be proactive. All successful people think long-term. I don't know of anybody who is a successful person who's a flippant short-term thinker who's changing horses midstream all the time. You can't. It's got to go for the long game. So if you really want to be successful in life, you have to plan to be. It's not an accident. You know, I mean, you might win the lottery, but if you're not smart, you'll lose it all. And I think they say like 95% of people have spent all the money in 5 years because they didn't earn it.
Right.
You know, and they make too many mistakes and blow it all.
Absolutely. So shifting to the real estate portion of it. So you own some investment real estate. Okay. At what point did you say, yeah, I want to own some real estate and I want to build some wealth in that avenue? Have you've done any tax strategies such as maybe accelerated depreciation or any 1031 exchanges, or walk us through how you've been able to defer capital gains tax?
1031, for example, since you mentioned that, I had a beach house in Curie Beach, North Carolina, and I 1031 that into my beach house up at Surf City, North Carolina. I have the building that I'm in now. I 1031 the sale of the building before we had for our company. I 1031 that into the building, the 20,000 square foot office building we're in today on 16 acres of commercial property. You've got to be smart with your strategies as far as that goes. We also, as far as capital gains and everything, we have I think I have 7 or 8 entities. My company leases the building from one of my other entities, my wife and I, and we charge ourselves $40,000 a month. Now the building is paid for, and we did it with like a triple net lease in essence, where all of the expenses are paid by the company for repair of the building and everything they're in. So, I mean, that's $500,000 a year. 40 times 12, obviously, $500,000, 480 to be precise.
That's a substantial amount to be able to save. Yeah, and to offset and write off versus your other income.
Yeah. Let me give you a good example of why I did that, Brett. Years ago, I think it was like the year or two after I started my company back in 1989. I think it was an Entrepreneur magazine or Inc. magazine one. They had a guy who had a company, and he had $44 million in annual sales. And the story was, Brett, that he actually lost one of his bigger clients, and he didn't do the right things. He tried to keep all of the people that he had on his payroll, ended up losing 1 or 2 of his best people, lost another big client, gradually went down, all the way down, where he had to go get a job. And I thought to myself, what an idiot. He kept all of his wealth in the company, and he ran it down into the ground. He didn't make the hard decisions. He kept, things are going to turn around, things are going to get better. I love being an optimist, Brett, but you got to be a realist. So that was a major mistake on his part. And I said to myself, I will never, ever put all my eggs in one basket. That's just good financial planning. So the very first thing I did after I got my company going, after not taking a vacation for 7 years, by the way, you got to pay your dues. So I worked my butt off, and only a few employees, and I worked, 60 hours a week myself. So after that 7 years, I started taking vacations. Now I take 24 weeks a year, every year. I have probably, since I guess about 2005, probably. But you take money and you get other entities, you buy other properties and things like that. So in essence, the goal is, if I wanted to retire, I don't need a dime from my company. I have income from my properties that pay me. And, tax advantages are out the wazoo. I mean, we could spend all day talking about those.
How did it feel the moment you either replaced or at least took a substantial amount of your income that you were earning per year, and it was coming from real estate versus just coming from your business. Walk us through that, because it sounded like the first 7 years you were so focused on building the business, and then you started to diversify and get other real estate assets, and then eventually those started producing income. Walk us through that feeling of, oh my goodness, I've just replaced or equaled or exceeded in real estate, which is a bit more passive than my day-to-day. How did that all feel?
That hasn't happened for me, buddy. My day-to-day is still spanking. Probably $2 million a year. So I'm going to be a while before I replace that with income, passive income, if you will. I mean, it's great, between salaries and the rents and everything, actually the $500,000 is in that number. So the rest of it is, salaries and profits. So much so, and it's again on the planning end. I told you we have 3 children. So each of my 3 children are now put as 10% shareholders in the company. We did that, of course, so they would not have to face all the taxes upon our death.
Walk us through that for those who don't know that about the estate tax, David. Walk us through that strategy there. Maybe you've done some family limited partnerships and some small gifting along the ways. Walk us through how that works. Because some folks don't realize that you don't get the stepped up basis. I mean, you get a stepped up basis in your assets, but that has nothing to do with the estate tax, which is a separate amount. And so walk us through how that works and your strategy behind that.
Well, if I recall, now granted, I pay for experts. I don't have to know all the knowledge myself, but I will say this. I know that it was 55% estate tax. And I did not want and my brother helped, my financial team. So, okay, we need to get some of this company out of your name so that your kids don't have to pay all this. So then another thing we did was put a whole life policy, if you will, in place. It was a $3 million policy paid off in 7 years. So that will take care of part of the taxes my kids would have had to pay. So, I like to use an analogy of driving a car as far as building your company. When you're driving the car, 97% of the time, your eyes are directly ahead, paying attention to what's in front of you. But the other 5 or 3%, you're checking the mirrors to see what's coming up behind you or from beside you that could harm you in any way. So that's how you have to think about it. Focus on growing your business, focus on acquiring the properties, whatever it is you need to do. But then you want to make sure that you are strategically planning and making the right moves to protect yourself along the way. And that's critical.
I think that's such a great analogy. And I can imagine those mirrors are sort of like your trusted advisors, or, you might have your CPAs that is the rear view mirror. You want to make sure you file your taxes properly and the IRS is going to come out to you. You have your side mirror, which could be, well, what happens if something unforeseen happens? Well, maybe that's your insurance professional. You have your other mirror with just typical finances. You add all of those up together collectively as the team, the real estate professionals, the estate tax attorney, the CPAs, and now you can drive and move your wealth safely throughout your journey. And then hopefully that car, your kids can jump right in and just keep driving it, right? Rather than not doing the estate tax planning. And imagine for our listeners right now, the current numbers are, if you're worth more than $22 million and you're married, or $11 million and you're single, anything inside the taxable estate is going to be hit with a 40% estate tax. So let's walk through a quick scenario. Imagine you're worth $52 million and you're married. That first 22 is exempt, no problem. But that next 30 that's inside is going to be hit with a 40% estate tax, which is a $12 million tax. Now that is, again, the capital gains tax in the stepped up basis is completely separate from that. So that means the estate will need to, within 6 months of the estate passing, pay that $12 million tax bill. But if you can do some planning before your estate passes, meaning before you die, and you can gift some of those amounts out or move them completely out of your taxable estate, you're going to save that $12 million tax for your kids. And what can you do with that? I mean, you can give that to charity, right? You can just set up for your grandkids. I mean, that's generational wealth that most people just don't take the time or don't have the professionals in place to help them avoid that. Any thoughts to that, David?
No, I think you covered that pretty well, for sure. I think again, it's planning. It's not, don't wing it. Like I said in the beginning, a good CPA will pay for themselves many times over. If you don't have a CPA that tells you ideas on how to save on taxes, you got the wrong CPA. Don't go cheap. I had a conversation recently with a relative of mine, and he was talking about his bookkeeper, and I go, bookkeeper? You got a multi-million dollar business, a bookkeeper? So I was ragging on him about it because you're not doing tax planning at all. And he was complaining about them not giving him advice. I'm going, they don't know enough to give you advice. Get a CPA. It's the old British saying, penny wise and pound foolish, right? They're dollar, pound. Good grief.
Absolutely. Hire the right people and pay them well. I'm curious, was your journey where did you start out doing that, or when you're in the beginning, did something turn and say, okay, from now on, I'm never jumping over dollars to pick up dimes? What was your journey with hiring the right people at the right time?
Yeah. As far as hiring, let me say this, as far as hiring the right people at the right time, that's strategic. You're only as good as your foundation, and your people are your foundation. They're your front line. But as far as the point that I said, good grief, I got to have a phenomenal financial team in place, was when I had to write the federal government $1 million check for 1 year on taxes. And I had to write the state of North Carolina a $300,000 check that same year. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Good grief. So I went all in on paying good money to find ways to not have to bend over most of the year, basically. I'm done with it. So I'm all about hiring the right people.
That is so well said, right? So you can pay that tax, or you can hire the right people, but you can't do both. Make sure you're finding the right advice to help you reach your goals and minimize that tax. So I consider you, David, a not only an entrepreneur, a wealth advisor, a business professional. Besides hiring the right people, right, and paying them the right amount, what are other, either business owners like yourself, entrepreneurs like yourself, what are they missing that you would say, hey, do this one thing, and this one thing will help you succeed, grow, give your employees, more recognition. It could be anything that you want to share with business owners right now that you would say, this is the one thing I would implement today.
Unquestionably, businesses rise or fall in leadership. And in essence, that means your people aren't going to rise any higher than you are. As my wife actually says, it's double this, and she's probably closer to the truth. I spend 3 to 4 hours a day reading and learning. My job as a CEO is to get the heck out of the way and let people do the job. I put them on the playing field. I have the 30,000 foot view on seeing exactly what's going on in my company. And I swoop down and say, hey, what's going on here? And then we fix that. I swoop back up to the 30,000 foot view and I look at that. So the very fact, it's like Ben Franklin said, the greatest investment you can make in yourself is your education. It pays the best dividends. So again, you cannot expect your people to get good, to get better, to constantly improve if you are not Brett. So number one, without question, advice that I would give any business owner who wants to be a successful one and make lots of money. And, that's how you say you become successful, is build a business that you don't have to be there every day. Even when I'm in town, Brett, and like I said, I take off 24 weeks of vacation a year. But even when I'm in town, I'm not in the office 3 hours. I go in for book club and an occasional, meeting every other week or something. That's about it. So, that's all I do, but I focus on learning. It's good. I actually watched on YouTube, Charlie Munger doing a commencement address. I think it was at Stanford or one of those colleges in California. And I remember him saying, talking about himself. He said, I read 8 hours a day. He said, Warren Buffett, my partner, reads 9. Now, these guys don't have to work another day in their life. They are the two of the most successful investors in history of the world. But that's what they do all day. They study all year long to basically make one financial investment in one company. That's what they do. So they read, they study, and that's exactly what you need to do as the business owner or a business professional.
Knowledge truly is power, and the more we can consume and spend time gathering that and building trusted advisors around us, I think the more we succeed. I took two things out of that: not only reading more, A, we all need to read more, but B, getting out of the way. Right, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we tend to be wanting to be in control, right? But instead of just giving, I've heard it put this way: set a vision, give a goal, right? And then fill that role and then get out of the way. I mean, get completely out of the way and trust your employees or your team members to go out and perform what you hired them to do. And of course, you need to check in on them. Of course, you need to hold them accountable. Of course, you need to encourage them. But it's more of a drop in to see and get out of the way and let them keep going, because otherwise you are the ceiling to the success of your business, your leadership, your development, and your ability to actually delegate and get out of the way. Any other thoughts to add to that? Those thoughts there, David?
Honestly, you want to be the dumbest guy in the room, to be honest about it. I mean, hire the best people, pay them well. Another thing, and what I do is I make sure they have some skin in the game. By that, I basically pay them 2/3 of their income is fixed. A third is at risk. By that, I mean they get salary, but if they want bonus, that's earned. Just showing up gets them their salary. But if they really want, they have stretch goals. And when we hit those stretch goals, I pay them handsomely and have very, very, very low turnover. I also we took 42 people to Mexico. We do our annual champion trip we've done for, I think, 15 years now, 14 or 15 years. And we take all the managers. This tells you how well our company's run. It's a perfect example of that. We take all of the managers in the company and their spouse, the top third of all of each team. We have 4 teams. Take top third from each of those, all the managers and their spouses, the top third and their spouses if they're married. We take them and go on a trip. While we're gone, all the leaders, all the top people are out of the company, but the company goes on. Why? Because again, 2/3 of their pay is fixed. If they goof off while we're in Mexico or wherever we go, they shoot themselves in the foot and they hurt themselves financially. So they get the job done. That's not an issue. So, that's a little kicker, a little icing on top, if you will, the champion trip. My wife and I pay for all that. I think we spent $130,000 last year for that trip. It's not cheap, but my people are very, very loyal to me because I invest in them and I spoil them. We just got back from Myrtle Beach. We had a record month in October. We got back from Myrtle Beach. We took everybody down there. We went to lunch. I passed out $200 to each employee, 2 $100 bills. We went shopping. We went play. Some of us went to watch a movie. Went to see, what was that? Midway. And then we met at Rio's Brazilian Steakhouse for dinner. We take very good care of our people. It's more a part of a team, a community, if you will, within the company. And we celebrate, big time. Of course, we're employee recognition. You got to do that, right? We do a big deal on that every month. And we all go to one of the nicest restaurants in town to eat. So, my people know I value them. If you really want to grow a successful company, you'd better too.
I love that, and that's inspirational for all of us to really dig into valuing your employees, celebrating their successes, and really putting your money where your mouth is. Right, saying, okay, I'm going to. I want you as an employee to put your money where your mouth is, meaning 2/3 fixed, a third commission or earned for bonuses. And that in itself, creating that system and that incentive is going to propel forward so that people, in a sense, hold themselves accountable, right? Not so much having to rely on someone else to push them. So I think that is worth all the wisdom, all the weight in gold there for that wisdom. So wrapping up, we're coming to our end of our time here. Curious on really this last question here. How do you, David, stay centered on your values? You have all the success, you have all, you're doing great, you're thriving, you're growing, you're having record months. Yep. How do you stay centered on your values along this journey? And then second, how do you stay encouraged to reach the next goal, right? Because I imagine you've set a lot of goals over the years and you've hit a lot of them, but what keeps you driving forward? So how do you stay centered in your values, and how do you keep driving forward?
Well, I love the game of business. I love the game. I love to beat last year's numbers. for 17 years straight, we had an average of 20% growth we had over the prior year. And that you don't get that by accident. You work hard. You like I said, you invest in your people, and you expect them to raise their game the next year. As far as values go, it doesn't really matter how much money you make. I've seen people that had low values that made a lot of money, and I've had people that had a lot of money had low values as well. A lot of money, low money, it doesn't matter. A lot has to do with the character of the individual. I would say this, and you being Christians, I'll without unequivocally, this is important as far as keeping you grounded. I think it's important that you give back. My wife and I, good grief, we give far more. As we earn more and more money, we give far more away. We tithe, of course, that's important, it's biblical. But as far as helping others, we do more and more of that. You can't take it with you, you know that. But you invest in the lives of people that can't pay you back, can't give you back. I like that the best.
I think
I pay very well to my employees, but I'm talking about people outside of the company who would have no way to repay us. That's the ones the difference in me and then in some people that want to give others, they don't do any pre-qualifying, if you will. I think it's important that our money, my wife and I, our money goes to helping people who are doing all they can, Brett, but are falling short. People that just come up to me and ask me for money, I rarely give it to them. But if they are showing me that they're really trying and they're really busting their butt, giving it their all, they're not wasting money, I have no qualms about helping those people. They're the ones I want to help.
Absolutely. That makes a whole lot of sense, because if it's the other way around, then it could be just enabling them to continue to do the things that they shouldn't be doing. So
Correct.
You want to reward good behavior and reward things that are going to help you be more successful. So, and then of course, just giving in general, we can't keep it all with us. So, I want to thank you, David, for being on the show and sharing your wisdom with us. It means a whole lot to these entrepreneurs and high net worth individuals who own businesses in real estate, who listen to our show, to hear from someone with your wisdom and your experience, and really the focus on encouraging employers to build into their teams, right? And lead from the front. Another saying is you can't push a rope, right? You got to get out in front and lead and pull. And when you do that, I think your team can thrive. So, and I want to thank our listeners again for being on the show. But before we go, David, remind us where we can find you again and connect with you in case perhaps you are a company looking for employee recognition or any other things that you venture in for your book as well.
Right. Well, my company is My Employees at myemployees.com is the company, the website. You can reach me at David Long at myemployees.com. The company phone number is 1-800-489-0230. And, you check out what we do on the web. As far as that goes, you can reach me on LinkedIn and all that kind of stuff too. So that's not a problem. I'm not on Facebook anymore, too much of a distraction. But you can reach me at LinkedIn if you want.
Excellent.
But it's just, we're all about helping people tie their employee recognition to the goals of the company. That's one of the things that's different about us. We assign a coach to you to keep you accountable on doing the things you need to do that will make you successful. Otherwise, we won't work with you.
That makes perfect sense. Well, check David Long.
Coach, you need somebody to hold you in.
Yep. Thank you for sharing that. And check David out and his team. And I want to thank again our listeners for listening to another episode of Capital Gains Tax Solutions Podcast. As always, we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, including entrepreneurs and including business owners, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. And, take a look at diversifying your income. Learn from what David said. You may have a business that's thriving, but perhaps you want to diversify into commercial real estate, investment real estate, and bring on the trusted advisors to help you get a game plan and execute that so you can defer capital gains tax and or just business income that's coming in. As always, not having a clear plan is the enemy, but using a proven tax deferral strategy is the best way to grow your wealth. Until next time.
You have just listened to another information-packed episode of Capital Gains Tax Solutions with Brett Swarts. We hope you enjoyed today's show and found it helpful. Visit capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to access the show notes and to access more resources. Don't forget to leave a review and join us again next time.